Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Tatiana Scantlebury, and I appreciate you all for investing your time to be a part of the Women as a Community Learning, cross-learning discussion. I am the Women Empowerment Research Associate with the Global Office Monitoring, Evaluation, and Learning Programs team, and I will be the moderator for this discussion. Through a series of interviews, we were able to forge a meaningful relationship based on a common goal: improving our understanding and implementation of women empowerment strategies. These conversations not only propelled my understanding of women's experiences globally, but ignited my advocacy for gender equality and advancing the 2030 agenda. Today we have an amazing panel of experts who I've had the privilege of working with throughout my 3 months here at THP. So I would like to know, what do you believe are the biggest challenges to sustainability of change for women in our partner communities?
One of the biggest challenge which still persists and which really doesn't go away when you're looking at the whole gender discourse, and especially in India, is that the structure and the ideologies that sustain and reinforce the oppression of women, it just persists even more. And it also then leads to unequal access to resources, whether it's economic, whether it's livelihoods, whether it's politics, or whether it's even, for that matter, social.
A lot has been done. We've invested really a lot of effort in training the women, in creating the awareness, in creating programs that can really empower them. And I believe these women already have the skills. But so much oftentimes we are so quick to always believe that, you know, the challenge is still out there. We've worked on those challenges. I mean, we've involved the men. We've tried to have these discussions with the men. We've tried to engage the governments. And I think the government is also doing so much. But why is it that there's always that consistent and continuous, you know, question of, you know, why are the women really being able to sustain the changes, to sustain the knowledge, the skills that they've been able to gain, to be able to, you know, to transform their lives? I've always believed that, you know, the whole question comes down now to the women themselves and the attitude and the thinking that they have. As Hunger Project, we really believe so much in mindset change and the power of, you know, self-reliance. And this is one thing that we always try to emphasize to the women, that, you know, at the end of it all, you get back to the same question of who is out there to hold you, who is out there preventing you from gaining whatever successes you want to gain in life, who is out there preventing you from using the skills that you've gained, that you've learned over time. The answer is yourself. It's the women themselves. So for us, actually, we've changed now the question and taken it back to the women and asked them, what is not happening?
One of the main challenges has to do with this triple discrimination that women suffer, not only because we are, or they are women, particularly in the communities, because they are also indigenous women and because they are also living in rural areas. So having this triple discrimination does not let them have the ideal context to make it sustainable. And that also has to do with, to make it sustainable, we need also to work with the different institutions to continue putting on the center of the conversations these problems that are having, and institutions thinking about government, thinking about private sector, thinking about educational institutions, because all of those institutions continue perpetuating these actions that generates discrimination.
I want to say that we have left the responsibility to women to achieve gender equality, to eliminate harmful practice against girls, to reduce discrimination and gender-based violence. They have been the ones who work for this, is as if it were their own responsibility and not ours, that of us men. As long as we do not rethink our ways of relating to each other, to change will not be complete. There will always be an oppressive system against women, and that despite all the empowering action that we do in favor of them. If we are not willing to overturn this great challenge of patriarchal culture, I am afraid that our financial, technical, and human resource investments will present challenge to be sustainable in the future.
It is women and girls who are disproportionately affected by the poverty and discrimination. Discrimination like, I want to say, their health, their education, sexual harassment, and those are these things. It is simple formula. But I want to say empowerment is the totals. This is the Hunger Project feelings. This is the Hunger Project beliefs. The empowerment is the total sum of the changes needed for a woman to realize her full human rights. Empowerment is not just about the giving some technical training, giving the skill training or loan. Empowerment is more than that. Empowerment is one of the process.
We need to raise a generation that is confident. We need to send these girls to school. We need to start the gender equality movement right at when the kids are born. They should grow into it. And when they're confident at a young or tender age, they will grow with it and they will be more confident. And even when given a leadership position, they will take it with confidence. But even sometimes, even if a woman is confident and they take up a leadership position, they're not trusted by the community just because they are women. So those cultural things and those things that happen, we need to address them away from the start of life. When the children are born, they should be treated equally. There shouldn't be discrimination based on gender. So we need to start our targeting right at a tender age and then empower these girls. When these girls are empowered, they will grow into empowered women and they'll make decisions and they'll be confident to explore so many things that would open up for them in life.
Can you please describe India's approach to women empowerment and specifically how widespread outreach factors as an element of impact and sustainability?
So yeah, so with India's empowerment, or how do we use empowerment as a concept and how do we really implement it through our programs? So like I mentioned, India already has a Constitutional Amendment Act, which basically guaranteed a minimum amount, a quota basically, for women to enter the political space. And this was 33%. So when we talk about a critical mass of women, and when you look at using that kind of a concept in women's political representation, that critical mass was realized through the 73rd Constitutional Amendment. Now moving forward from there, once the quotas was there, but what women could do and cannot do is another aspect that needed to be looked into. And like women everywhere know, and whether we are in all walks of life, that being in the room doesn't necessarily mean that you're being heard, right? Now, for that matter, what Hunger Project India's strategy really builds on and really is embedded in is that, okay, look, we have these elected women who have come to power, and let's look how we can really build their capacities. Now, when we say building their capacities, that is where the elements of the empowerment approach that we use is basically looking at the following key aspects. One is that the strategy is deeply embedded in the gender discourse. So that in effect means that it's not just one-off intervention that we are doing to really talk about gender or to really realize the kind of gender equality between men and women, which means that the entire program, the way it has been designed, is basically looking at it from a more holistic perspective, which means that you're looking at really building their voice, really talking about their agency. And in agency, we talk about individual agency, me, and also in terms of a collective.
And with that, I would like to move to THP Mexico, and we'll pose this question to both Sylvia and Roberto. So for Sylvia, in our previous discussions, we spoke about the patriarchal systems or machista, the cultural norms within the Mexican partner communities, and how they fundamentally, there's obstacles to women empowerment. So what are the strategies that THP Mexico has employed to involve men within the Women Empowerment Programming. And to Roberto, we would like to know, as the strategic partner coordinator with THP Mexico, you hold an essential role in making connections with development actors, such as private sector and agencies within the United Nations. From these partnerships, how can gender equality policies impact women and men within our partner communities?
The strategies have to do with two levels. I would like to think, like, first in the mental structures, what we all call mental structures, and at the same time in the practice. And well, in a third level, to getting to know really well what's the context in particularly, because there are indigenous communities, and even though they are in Mexico, the traditions and the customs they have, since they are indigenous communities, have differences from one community that could be Tzotzil indigenous women or men, and Mazateca indigenous people. So also knowing those traditions and those customs is really, really important. We have this part in the VCA, as you know, of the reflection of what does gender equality mean? What does gender mean? Also starting to know what does gender mean actually. So we start with these questions about where did it come? Where did the word gender come from? Who told me that I was a man or I was a woman? Who told me that these are the particular roles, or when did I realize that these are the roles that have been designated to me since I am a man or since I am a woman? And where were we in the past? Where are we right now? And where do we want to be in the future regards gender and regards equality?
Another strategic element has to do with what I mentioned in my first speech, and enhance the bodily autonomy of women, and this is only achieved through the empowerment of sexual reproductive rights when women can decide about their bodies, and this is not men who decide for them or through police when we will talk about a real change. I am convinced that we will not be able to talk about achieving self-reliance in community if in Mexico they continue to murder women, if they sell them, if pregnancies in girls and adolescents continue to occur, if they continue to spend twice as much time working at home without being paid. All this is what deepens to feminization of poverty. And if we don't not invest in working on this, I think we have one of the greatest challenge at a strategic level to talk about self-reliance.
I would like to now move on with NAIKAALI. We spoke a little bit about the Women Empowerment Program and how reach is very important. So we wanted to know from you, how do you ensure that you're reaching the largest number of women and men, and how important is reach to THP Uganda?
Previously, we would go into communities and mobilize women who are interested in our programs. You know, we go through the vision, commitment, and action workshops, and we select animators. And these animators, when they're in the communities, they tend to play almost a similar role as the other leaders, women leaders within the communities. So we realize that sometimes that creates some sort of a parallel structure, and we are deliberately ensuring that, you know, we are incorporating these already existing leadership structures in the communities within our program so that they can be able to increase our reach and they can ease up the mobilization. And, you know, in most cases, these structures have existed and the communities believe in them, the women trust them. I mean, the men believe in them. So when we use like for example, the head of the women, we call them, we have the head of the women in the community, in the village, the head of the women in the village to mobilize the fellow women. These women have been elected and they are role models within these communities. So when such a woman goes to a household to mobilize women for maybe a WASH program, the men or women empowerment program or any sort of training, the men will not really they will not tend to have a lot of resistance to that.
I would like to now speak with Grace. And I was very interested in our conversation, our interviews, where we spoke about THP Malawi and how they have implemented an innovative way of communicating communicating with communities during the time of COVID-19 using megaphones. So for you, I would like to know, how has navigating through the global pandemic shaped sustainable initiatives for women, for the Women Empowerment Program?
So we made sure that there was continuity of our programming. The programs which these people planned still needed to continue. So they would gather people, and people would stay on the verandas of their houses, and they would have a discussion, a training on a specific topic, and then people would be able to raise their hand, and then the animator would move closer to get the information and then speak louder using the megaphone, and then respond to the question or ask someone within the who is participating to contribute after they have contributed, and then she will raise her voice so that everyone else hears what the other respondent was talking about. So I would say we managed to maneuver because we had already established sustainable we had already managed to build capacity of these animators on women empowerment issues, be it on gender-based violence, be it on reproductive health, and be it on many other factors that they needed to be equipped on. So they were just pulling information from the knowledge which they were already had.
Thank you so much, Tatiana, and to all of our colleagues that are on the call, and especially to our colleagues that are on the panel. And I think this opportunity for me, and I think for our team and for our organization, really represents this meaningful desire to continue learning and adapting our strategies, and not just sort of in the silo of the work that we do day to day, but learning from each other. And I think that's one of sort of the clear benefits that we have in working in such a widespread organization, is that we have a diversity of perspectives, experience, and expertise.